We are in part 5 of our study of Exodus chapter 1. We're reading verses 15 to 21. And I titled this Pharaoh's Plan with Shiphrah and Puah. Remember that the Egyptians are hard taskmasters against the people of Israel. They didn't want them to take power. They didn't want them to have authority, and so they made them slaves. And they were working with brick and mortar and building the store cities. But they continued to multiply. The more they were punished, the more difficult their jobs, the more they must have had sex and had more children. That's interesting because the only pleasure they would get is the going home and having a good night. So they multiplied. And actually, someone should have sat down with Pharaoh and said, "Hey, think about this, man. If you have the midwives kill all the boys, you soon will have no men as your slaves, and then the women will either take power or they will marry Egyptians, and you won't have any more slaves at all." But it doesn't seem that Pharaoh had any sense about him in terms of looking down the road. He was only concerned about limiting the immediate problem of the multiplying of the people of Israel. Let's read the scripture, verses 15 to 21. "And the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the other was Puah. And he said, when you do the office of midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, the birthing stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, you shall let her live. But the midwives feared God, and did not do as the king commanded, but they saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called the midwives and said unto them, why have you done this thing? And why have you saved the men children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women, for they are lively, and they are delivered before the midwives come in unto them. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because of the midwives fearing God, that he made them houses. Pause there. And it came to pass, because of the midwives feared God, that God blessed their homes. Now we're talking about the midwives. There are two mentioned by name. They are Shiphrah is the proper pronunciation, and she is found in some of the scrolls, the papyrus that were found, and is described as one of the Jews that were enslaved in Egypt. Her name is repeated, her name along with 17 or others that were notable slaves in the Egyptian empire, and Shiphrah was one of them. She was probably high up in rank, even as a Hebrew. She was in the palace of the king, and so she had the responsibility as the nursemaid for all of the midwives. And the other one was Puah. Now we will also find that Puah is written about in Scripture as well. In Genesis chapter 46, and verse 13 in the NIV, you will find her name as a daughter of Issachar. So these two women are famous women. These are notable women. These are strong leadership women that were in Israel and put over the responsibility of killing the babies that were born who were male. Now you can imagine being a Hebrew woman and being a nurse, a baby being born, a young boy, and then having to kill the baby. Now these women were Hebrews. They were not Egyptians. We know that because of the names that were written of slaves, and we know by the etymology of the name, it is a Hebrew name, not an Egyptian name. So these were Hebrew women, and they were called upon to kill their own people, and they refused to do so. And I think that's significant. It's notable that these women, when it came to the birth stool, now we'll talk a little bit about the birth stool. It was two large blocks of concrete or of cement that people would come into like a nursing chamber, and the woman would stand on those and then squat and have her baby in a squatting position, not like we do today. Women aren't in a hospital and are not sit back and put their legs in a stirrup and somebody is there to care for the baby. The baby plopped out And the midwives were there to care for the bleeding and cut the umbilical cord, and then they salted it, and they took care of the baby while the mother got up and did whatever she was to do. Now, in Cambodia, where I have traveled, the women out in the field that were caring for the rice would carry their babies full term, and then right there in the rice paddies, they would squat down and they would have their babies, and there they would wash them off, cut the umbilical cord, wrap them up, put them on their shoulder, and continue to work till the end of the day. Wow. You women think you have it tough now? Woo! It's a wonder. It's no wonder they said these Hebrew women are lively. These Hebrew women are strong. I mean, they have easy deliveries. They don't spend 10 hours in a delivery. They don't spend 10 hours in a labor room. These ladies are swift, and they have their babies, and they sugar them out, and they just have one after another. Well, what's notable is about Shiphrah and Puah. They came before the king, came before Pharaoh, and they were called to an account. Why are you not killing the young men as we told? We have reports that you were saving them. And they said, we can't do it. And you need to look at this carefully. They lied. They fibbed. They misled the king of Egypt by saying they're just lively and we can't get there in time. And that wasn't entirely true. In part, it was true because they were lively and they did have their babies quickly. But the truth is, they would not kill their own. They would not kill Hebrew children, so they refused to do so. And they could have sacrificed their lives before Pharaoh, but they were bold enough to say, "We will not do this. We cannot do this, and it's just beyond our control." Now, stop for a moment and think. When we come to our discussion time, I want you to think about this. We are in an era in which abortion has been made legalized and has become an epidemic. We have killed millions upon millions of children. We have killed them in the womb, whether they're male or female. And God will not hold us guiltless. God will not wink at this. God will not turn aside and not note it. In every culture where abortion was practiced, or this is not exactly abortion, but it is infanticide. Wherever this was practiced, that nation came to an abrupt ending. Judgment fell from God upon that nation. Think about our own nation. Now think of yourself in the position of Shiphrah and Puah. They were bold enough to stand their ground and even give up their lives. The question for each of us, including myself, is, are you willing to give up your life to save a baby's life? Are you willing to stand against the king's edict and say, no, this shall not happen. I will rescue the children that need to be rescued. Thank God for men and women that are doing that today. I trust that you will consider what God will enable you to do on their behalf. God bless you.